welcome to episode 88, part 2 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
It does, yes. This is the second part on the granny killer.
I hate him.
You do. We're not huge fans of this one.
No.
Controversially. Yeah, so John Wayne Glover we're talking about. Sorry that this podcast will end up coming out a little bit later, but it's because we are trying to do that thing where we drop, I always feel ancient when I say that, drop 2 episodes at the same time.
I refuse to say it. I will say release. I will say
okay,
Kentucky Fried Chicken. and
the wireless instead of the radio,
and the
yeah?
wireless, thank you very much.
And the talkies.
The talkies, yeah. But it's good you get them both together and you don't have to wait for the next part then.
Yes, and we will just crack on and try and... it's just a bit tricky at the moment being on tour and everything starting up again. Also, I think a lot of people are going through this. I mean, everything's gone back to being 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we're both fucked, aren't we?
Yeah, I've still got a sore throat again. I had COVID, as we all know. Recovered from that. Have I been well since? And no, I haven't. So, I went to the doctors the other day. And yeah, I did go to a private doctor because I'm like, you know what? I just want this sorted ASAP. And also, there's no point me clogging up an appointment at this time in medical, history.
Yeah, also you don't have, you work your bollocks off for 15 years doing comedy. You do your sellout tour. You don't have to apologise for...
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is... I don't
spending your money where you want.
I don't actually think they're any better. I just think it's that kind of thing with me. I'm like, right, this needs to fit in around my life because I'm so busy. Let's just fucking get this done. Now, got in there, right? Went up the stairs to the waiting area, of which there was nobody in there apart from the receptionist, 12 empty chairs, and a man with a dog, right? And she goes, oh yeah, you're early for your appointment. Can you go and wait downstairs? I was like, I've been kicked out of here and there's a fucking dog in here. Now, before anyone writes in, showing me age there, before anyone sends a telegram, it wasn't a fucking assistant's dog. It was just a cockapoo that happened to be with this man. This is
what happens if you go private. You'll get a fucking $2,000 dog in there.
This is the fucking doctor's surgery. I'm sorry. I love dogs. I'd love one of my own. I haven't really got the time to have one at the moment. But people in this country need to get a fucking grip about dogs, right? It's a fucking dog, right? I love them. I am sick of going to places and there being a dog there. Why are you here, right? I went Marks and Spencer's. I'm sounding like I've gone middle class. I was at a train station. I fancied a chicken coronation butty, right? Went to go in Marks and Spencer's food. There's a woman stood outside with a French bulldog while her boyfriend went in. The security guard waved her in with the dog. There's food in there. Get your dog out. Right, honestly,
do you know what's so good? Is we're doing this in the morning. It's 9:20, and people are getting a lovely little insight into what you're like first thing in the morning.
Oh, don't. It fucking pisses me off, right? I love dogs, I do. And I find, assistance dogs are amazing. Guide dogs, hearing dogs.
All kinds of epilepsy dogs.
Epilepsy dogs, absolutely fantastic.
Support dogs,
amazing, right? However, don't undermine what they do by letting every cunt and every mongrel in to every environment.
Can I just say, I don't think they are letting mongrels in. I think they're only letting posh little French bulldogs and cockapoos in.
Yeah, that was me putting the dogs down. No, not like that.
I think when a homeless person comes along with a mixed breed,
yes,
they don't wave them in.
Of course, that's the case. But also, I get really irritated as well. Dogs and kids in environments that are not their environment. Fuck off. I don't mind a dog in a pub, but this is no exaggeration, right? This is me being deadly serious. I went into a pub a few months ago. There were 7 dogs in there. It's sorry, but also not everyone... I like dogs. Not everyone likes them. So, what has happened in this country that the dog is now fucking king of the world?
Do you know what's a weird thing for me as well that I'm sort of obsessed with is the idea that bigots love dogs. So, so often when you see incredibly racist or, you know, any other kind of prejudice online, they'll have like a adorable dog as their profile picture.
There's that thing.
Oh yeah, the Twitter account that's like racist animals. Yeah, racist pets, that's it. So I think the proliferation of dogs in public spaces is like directly proportional to how unsafe it is to be in that space if you're marginalised. So like the more dogs, the scary it would be to be a trans woman in that bar. That's what I think.
I totally disagree. What I think it is, it's the middle classes trying to convince you they've got a personality. That's what it is. There's nothing deeper than that. It's fucking highly irritating. Middle class girls, women, mainly younger women.
Thanks for listening.
No, they need to be told. With these dogs, it is not a personality, right? It's just to create a conversation because you've got nothing to say.
I mean, if my dog was a personality, it would be, just as a reminder, incontinent.
Well, can I say, your dog, absolutely no hassle. This isn't like a dog is an addition to a family. It comes into your family, it enhances things, it has a nice life. But it is a dog, right? It fits in around you. We don't have to fit in around it. Anyway, the doctor was shit. Wouldn't give me the medication I clearly need. Looked in my ear, begrudgingly. I'm deaf in one ear. If anyone listens to this and is a doctor that lives in London, can you fucking treat me?
Don't say that, because they'll be like, oh, I just need to check your vagina for some reason.
Don't check the bumhole. It's beyond help. Anyway, I can't. The whole
Speaking
point
of
is
bumholes who are beyond help.
The whole point is
John Wayne Glover.
The whole point is, I think everyone's feeling this a little bit as well. Like I'm not feeling great. You're a bit run down as well.
My head's just completely fucked.
Why? It's not anything I can help with?
No, love. No, it's all right. I think I'm hoping I'm sort of on the way out of it. But, you know, I just feel like I felt quite embarrassed by it now. But I've got a mail out and I'm trying to move it to be more of a newsletter. So I did lots of oversharing on the last one and just talked about how, I don't know, I'm just in a very weird place where I feel like I can't enjoy any of the nice things that are happening to me. And loads of people replied to it. And loads of women were like, this is how I feel, and like tired all the time and like in a bit of a daze. And one man got back and went, you've got depression. Have you thought about exercising more?
Oh my God.
Like there was loads of solidarity for women and then a man diagnosing me.
Classic. Absolute classic. I think as well, like, because as you said, you're feeling like that. I'm feeling a little bit like this. And I think it's because, you know, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm very happy to be busy. I'm happy that I've got work coming in, and I wouldn't change that for the world. But I feel that, like you said, I haven't got time to enjoy anything, and because there's so much travelling and stuff like that, I feel. And also the exercise thing. You know, I love exercise. I don't love it, but I like to exercise, and I, you know, do it a lot. I haven't been able to go to the gym or do any exercise for, I think, 2 months now. Because I've been ill, and then the gigs and stuff like that. And the tiredness, I'm like, I'm too tired to do it. Maybe the entire world's depressed. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a huge leap. There's been a huge trauma, isn't there, for 2 years?
Oh, God. It never ends, does it?
No. Anyway,
speaking of trauma.
We're on to the murders, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We know in the last episode he attacked 84-year-old Margaret Todhunter, and we then move on to the first murder, which was March the 1st, 1989. This was Gwendoline Mitchell-Hill, who was 82 years old. He'd spent most of the day in the Mosman Club, it's an RSL club, it's a services club for retired servicemen, like a Legion we would have here, wouldn't we? And,
picture the Queen up in it.
So that's the club where he went to spend Margaret Todhunter's money, and he saw 82-year-old Gwendoline Mitchell-Hill walking down the road. Now, she goes to her house, and as she goes to open her front door, he hit her with the hammer that he had with him. He actually, I think he went to his car to get his hammer. He hit her repeatedly with the hammer on the head. He also hit her on the body, and she had several broken ribs. Now, he dragged her to the rubbish bin alcove of the apartment block. He took her pantyhose. I don't like saying pants. Of everything I've said here, pantyhose. Tights. He took her tights off and he strangled her with them. Now, he then positioned her body, stole $100 off her. And what he did was he posed her shoes and walking stick quite neatly at the side of her. Now, she was still alive when she was found by two schoolboys shortly after. But she was taken to the hospital and sadly died. Now, there was no crime scene because the neighbours and staff at the sort of retirement village thought they were doing the right thing, thinking, oh no, this is horrible, this is a mugging that's gone wrong, quick wash away all the blood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I kind of understand because it's so distressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, the police as well assumed that this was another mugging gone wrong.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, that they're not making the links at all.
Yeah.
But also, I get why your first thought isn't serial killer. I think it would be now because of the proliferation of true crime podcasts, but
Yeah.
I understand why, especially because there's money missing. I think he enjoyed the murders and the money was a byproduct, but I can see why people thought that people were after the money and the murder was a byproduct.
Yeah, I of course, I think with him the money was a trophy, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, he leaves lots of other things, like jewellery and stuff like that.
Well, he often takes the handbags as well.
Yeah, that's his trophy, isn't it? And he obviously gets a kick out of going to the club and spending the money that he's stolen off these poor women.
Yeah. Also, he's got this weird thing that he starts to do. So he's in his living room, like, not long after that, and there's sirens going off, and he says to Gay, his wife, oh, I wonder what that is. And he does this a lot where he'll hear this, he'll go somewhere where he's within sirens, a siren's breath of, I wish I hadn't said that because it sounds like a sort of Hans Christian Andersen novel.
Or like
perfume.
an erotic fiction.
Siren's breath on the back of your neck. Yeah, so he would go where he was in earshot, that's the word I'm looking for, of the sirens, and they'd be like, oh, I wonder what that is. But yeah, it was basically presumed that it was a random attack. And in a way it was. Like, he just spotted her in the middle of the afternoon, this 82-year-old wandering down Military Road. It's busy, she'd been to the shops. Like, he is opportunistic as well. Like, he has a type. She doesn't know them necessarily, and it's not well planned.
Can I just say on the subject of hearing the sirens, though? My father, a man who never speaks, and very little that we know about him. In fact, I'm reading a book at the moment about, do you remember those undercover police officers that infiltrated, like, Greenpeace and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Relationship. It's fucking, the book's, a horrendous experience for the women. I'm starting to think, is that my dad? Is that what my dad's doing? Because I know nothing about him. He never speaks, right? But yet he's been there for, the entirety of my life. Anyway, it'd be so funny if it turned out he was. If my dad will say nothing, oh my God, if he hears police sirens or a helicopter, he's galvanised into action. He's
really?
Like, oh, wonder what's happening. Where's this? What's going on? Also, because he drives for a living, he's a
professional driver, Rachel.
Oh, I'm a professional driver. He will be like this. He'll go, oh, there's been a smash. He loves to see a crash. Oh,
really?
Yeah, like nothing serious. He loves it. If you're driving along, a car bumps another car. He's like, ho ho ho! There's been a smash. Ho ho ho! He loves it. He cannot get enough of it. Right. Also, my local group for where I live in London, there's an in-joke which is quite funny. The police helicopter's out quite often, and sometimes people go, "Does anyone know why the police helicopter's out?" As if we have any extra knowledge. Or like, oh, there's police at the end of Forest Road. Does anyone know why? Why would we, right? But anytime the police helicopter's out, someone always puts on the group, helicopter's out. just like, it's just like 1,000 people just having this in-joke, and I find it quite funny. Second murder, which was on the 9th of May 1989, so not that far after the first one. This was Lady Winifreda Isabel Ashton Hoggard. And
what a name.
She was an 84-year-old, and she was the wife of quite a famous impressionist artist, Sir John William Ashton, who had passed away a few years before. Now,
every time you say that, I think you're going to stop at the word impressionist.
Oh, yeah, it's for wife of impressionist.
Yeah, and he's got, he's doing like Deirdre from Coronation Street.
Oh, Ken.
Ken. Oh, God, she was amazing. I loved her.
She was great.
She was lovely.
When I worked at Kendall, she used to come in and do shopping, and she was absolutely lovely.
Nice to know.
Now,
that.
Lady Ashton had come from the bingo. Absolutely love that. At least this wife of an impressionist painter had just had an afternoon at the bingo.
She sounds cool in so many ways. She had like this bright red raincoat on. She's tiny, tiny little 84-year-old woman. She had lymph cancer, which is so, so sad, but it's still like bobbing about her business, wearing a statement coat, going for a little gamble on the bingo. Bingo's gambling. I've just found that out, so I keep mentioning it wherever I can. Going for a little gamble on the bingo. And he follows her home and follows her to the foyer of her... She lives again in like a retirement kind of village. He gets in the apartment building and then he grabs her. Now, even though she's frail and very petite and tiny and 84, he says later on, at one point she almost had me. I fell on top of her, this is really horrible, and repeatedly bashed her head against the concrete.
I hate him.
Yeah.
I hate him. I can't... I honestly, of all the things we... I think all these every episode is fucking horrible, but this one particularly turns my stomach, because you know what I'm like about older people.
Yeah.
I can't... I just don't understand how you could do this to someone like that.
Yeah. I mean, fair fucks to her for, like, fighting so hard, but it's horrible. This is, like, ultimate indignity. He throws her body in the bit where the bins are left. Ugh. Now, she's unconscious at this point, but she's still not dead. Takes off her tights, strangles them with her, because by this time that's now his MO. Takes her shoes and her walking stick and lays them out in a very particular way at her feet. And then he just goes back to the Mosman for a drink, and there's sirens, and he goes, oh, I hope that isn't another one of those muggings.
Ugh.
And literally at the time is sat there trying to win the Jackie on the Quizzy with her money.
Oh my God, I hate him.
Yeah.
One of the other things, like, he put her tights so tightly round her neck, it had cut through her skin.
Fucking hell.
Her diamond ring was still present as well, which sort of confused the police as well, because they were like, oh, well, why wouldn't somebody take that?
Well, you know, my theory is that that's traceable, whereas used notes isn't.
Yeah.
So it's too much effort for him as well, isn't it, for a diamond ring? But do you know what? The police at this point, they do actually link the attacks. They're like, hold on, this is older women who are wealthy. They're killed in a similar way. The handbags are all taken. This all happening in the same suburb as well. So at the same time, he's up to another fucking horrible crime. So we'd mentioned this a bit in the last episode, but he's worked as a pie salesman. Now, apparently, found out that pies are really big in the Antipodia. Is that how you say it? Yeah. So the pie...
They love it. Australia love a fucking pie, man.
Yeah, and New Zealand are the same, because...
New Zealand, also South Africa.
Oh, really?
South Africa. Yeah, well, no, it's a huge thing over there, pies.
See, I would have thought pie is quite a British thing.
Let's face it, though, we have been over and, infiltrated, so we probably brought the pie with us.
The pie and smallpox, that's what we've exported.
Oh, a smallpox pie, please. Thank you very much.
I think I've told this story before, but Ed, who's in Tarot and Gay's Family Gift Shop, was telling us about how he went to New Zealand when he was younger, I think, to do like a tour with like a drama company, and pies are everywhere to a very high standard, and so they stopped at like a service station, and one of the boys that he was on, I'm sure I've told this before, is on the trip with, looked at a pie and went, Venetian and Cumbumberway Quitch. And he was reading the packet of the pie, which actually said venison camembert quiche.
Oh, God.
But Venetian and Cumbumberway Quitch. And the way he said it was like he'd had it a million times. Venetian Cumbumberway Quitch.
What did Ed say to that? Was he just like...
I think it's one of those ones where you just don't acknowledge that someone has, like, fucked it so hard.
Oh, my God. It's so funny. I'm going to say something controversial here. I'm currently in Edinburgh and doing some gigs, recording this in my hotel room, and there's a shop here that sells pies. I won't name the name.
Oh, I know the one.
Highly overrated. Take that macaroni pie and put it in the fucking bin. It's disgusting.
No, behave. I absolutely love a macaroni pie.
It's disgusting.
No.
And this is coming from me. It's disgusting.
My mum used to get them frozen from Farm Foods, macaroni pies and Scotch pies, which is a bit like a lasagna in a pie. You know those pies that are open top that you get the macaroni in? It's like lasagna, but instead of using flat layers of pasta, they use the big bow tie ones. It's fucking great.
Oh, do you know, I might go for that, but I just think those macaroni pies are fucking dog shit.
No. Carb on carb. Behave.
Just crap. Dry.
Well, they shouldn't be dry, Rachel.
Well, every time I've had one, they've been dry.
Okay, well, I'll
nothing
allow
worse
them.
than a dry pie.
I'll take your word for it.
So, as he's delivering his pies for the 4 and 20 pie company, he is also committing molestations, which I fucking hate this. There's a lot of shades of Jimmy Savile to him, I think.
Yeah.
He's going into these places, the hospitals, the nursing homes where these vulnerable women are, vulnerable older women. A 77-year-old in June 1989 reported that a man had put his hand up her nightgown and described him
Yeah, that's Marjorie Moseley. She described the incident, but she couldn't actually remember what he looked like, which is something that comes back time and time again later on in the case. They actually think the fact that he looked like a very average man was what allowed him to sort of slip in and out of places sort of almost unseen, because he just looked like every other guy. So yeah, so when you get victims who are older, whose memory isn't maybe what it was, it's even harder for them to retain what he looked like.
24th of June.
This is Caroline Chisholm.
Yeah, Caroline Chisholm. She's a woman in a nursing home, and she actually shouted for help, and he was questioned, but obviously that came to nothing.
Because he just used to fucking wander around like a creep, selling his Venetian combo boy quitches. He wandered upstairs into this nursing home, goes into Caroline's room, and basically grabs her ass, and then she shouts, goes next door, grabs the breasts of the woman in that room, who then yells for help. And then they go, "Did you see what happened?" and asked him a few questions. He said, "Oh no," and then he just slips out, and that's it. He's sort of forgotten that he was ever there.
And then the 8th of August 1989, Effie Carney, this is in Sydney, he assaults her. 6th of October, he assaults a blind woman. Can you just fuck off?
Yeah, I mean, so Effie, in August, he's near the Mosman, he just beat her up and stole her groceries. Like, who the fuck is that for?
I hate him.
And Phyllis McNeil, like a few months later in October, he pretended to be her doctor. And then she's blind, and he basically put his hands up her dress. She obviously, like, freaks out, and he just wanders out, and there's no way of ever finding out who he is.
The man's a pig.
He's fucking horrible.
On the 18th of October, we come to another assault, which was 86-year-old Doris Cox. Now, she was coming back from shopping. He saw her, he assaulted her.
Mid-afternoon again, basically daylight.
Daylight, mid-afternoon, horrendously attacked her, but she survived. Unfortunately, she had dementia, so couldn't remember anything about what had happened. What I find upsetting is, here's a woman who's, quite independent despite having dementia, and he just takes all that away.
Yeah, it says 86 years of negotiating this fucking planet, and then this cunt comes along. Yeah. Because he basically slammed her into the wall, and she collapses unconscious, but because there's nothing in her handbag, he just wanders off and leaves her for dead, basically. Now, she tried her best to cooperate with the police. She thought it was a young man. So for a while they were looking for a young man, and they were looking for a couple. They thought it might have been local teenagers. Well, a local teen with a fixation on grandmas. And they thought that there might have been a couple of them working together to do these muggings.
Yes, because of the time it was, they thought it might have been students coming out of school, didn't they, as well? Yeah. That was another thing. There was a skateboarder seen nearby, and the police thought maybe the skateboarder had done it because of the injuries to her head. Yeah. It wasn't they never traced the skateboarder.
His next victim is Margaret Payhead. So she's 85 years old. This is November 2nd, so 3 weeks after this? Yeah. Doris Cox. So she's heading down Longville Road, and she is suddenly hit around the head with a blunt instrument. And it all happens very, very quickly, and it's so forceful that it fractures her skull, and she basically almost dies on impact. And we assumed that this was his hammer that he used to carry with him. So he takes her handbag. There's absolutely no witnesses, and she's found, again because of the time of day, by a girl on her way home from school who's walking along the pavement and thinks she sees a pile of clothes. So she walks over, and when she gets closer, she sees that it's poor fucking Margaret. Horrible. Now, he took a handbag and took $300 from it, and then hid the bag in a drain, and then he goes to the fucking Mosman again, drinks it, spends the money on the gambling machine.
On the same day, he actually aborted a potential murder. So this was literally just before Margaret. He sees 78-year-old Dorothy Bank walking home, and he says to her, "Oh, can I help you carry your groceries?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And he helps her to her front door, and she offers him some tea, and he says, "Oh, no thanks," and then he leaves. So he decides not to kill her, which is interesting. I wonder why. I mean, I wonder if it's because maybe she was more sprightly than he anticipated. Yeah. Maybe somebody had seen him, maybe she had somebody coming round, or... Yeah. You don't know, but...
it's strange, isn't it, when, one gets away? And you're like,
yeah, I have a feeling she might have been more sprightly than he thought.
Right.
That's what I think. Maybe she got a good look at him as well because he walked and he thought, oh, what if she survives?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Margaret, on that day that he murders Margaret, it actually throws the police a bit because it's 5 kilometres from the Mosman and the others have been much, much closer in walking distance. It threw the police because they were looking for a teenager who could do everything on foot in a very certain suburb, and this is 5 kilometres away, so they don't even really at that point link Margaret to these murders. But about this time, they kind of go, what if we're looking for an average man here? Because a few of the sort of survivors and people who've been mugged recently have said, oh, he's just sort of an average man. And that's when they start to make the link with the murders and be like, well, the fact that no one's seeing him and he's able to sort of slip in and out, maybe it is an average man. Maybe it isn't a young man. Maybe it's not someone sort of distinct looking. Maybe it's not a teenager with a skateboard that you would sort of remember. Maybe it's just your average Joe. And this is when they also started to make connections with the assaults that have been happening in nursing homes and hospitals. Because the fact that no one can sort of say that they saw a man going in and out or what he looked like, maybe this is the same person.
The thing is as well, within 24 hours of that, the murder of poor Margaret, this was the 3rd of November. So the day after, Olive Cleveland was sitting on a bench outside a retirement village, minding her own beeswax, thinking about the world, and he comes to join her. It's like, men, if you see a woman sitting on a bench, can you just leave her to fucking sit on the bench? Because you are not enhancing our lives in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Fucking annoys me. Don't start talking to me. Anyway, she's sitting next to him, and she starts to get the vibe that he's weird. She's like, everything that's been happening recently, this guy seems a bit of an odd one. I'm going, right? So she goes and walks off. Now, he starts to follow her, and then he pushes her into a side lane, and he repeatedly hits her around the head. He removes the tights again and puts them around her neck, rearranged her clothes, and he took $60. Now, her injuries were attributed to a heavy fall.
Fucking hell.
Horrendous. Then the 23rd of November is the 5th murder, which is Muriel Faulkner, who was 93. Now, she's walking back to her home, and he's sitting in a hotel, and he sees her walking along the street. So he sees her, and he goes back to his car and takes a hammer and gloves from the boot of the car.
Well, because she was struggling with her shopping. And other people would just go, I'll give her a hand, not like, I'll go and get my gloves and my hammer.
Fucking 93 years old. Now, she was partially deaf and blind as well.
Yeah.
Do you know, I hate stuff like this. Like, I know these women probably wanted to be independent, but I'm just like, oh, God, can I just go back in time and do their shopping for them?
Yeah. You just think that, like, especially that generation have seen and experienced so much, and you're like, can it not just be incredibly hard for some people all their lives?
Yes.
That's what bums me out. It's like, just let them have 8 years off of
But having said that as well,
my
my grandma lived till she was like 93, 94. She was really independent and stubborn and, wouldn't, even though she had all of us around her, she would resist any kind of help. Even, let me go to Asda for you. No, I can do it myself. It's like, right, okay. So I think there is that thing of like wanting to be independent right up until the very last minute as well.
Well, Muriel, like you say, she was partially deaf and blind. He clocks that, and he basically, when she goes in the house, he walks in behind her. Because she doesn't know that he's been following her, covers her mouth, and then attacks her with a hammer and basically beats her around the head and neck. Fucking hell.
Horrible.
Takes her tights off, and as he's taking her tights off, she shouts out, and then he batters her again and then throttles her with her own tights. Awful. He steals $100 that he basically finds in her purse and around the house, and she's not found until the next day. Neighbours go and check on her, and then they find her body. Now, this is the first time that there is a proper crime scene, if you like, that hasn't been cleaned by neighbours, and they find a footprint in blood on her carpet, which is a step forward, but they still need a suspect to match it against, which at the moment they don't have.
They said from the shoe print, they thought it was someone who... It was quite a sensible shoe print, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't like a Cuban heel or anything.
Yeah, what a way to find out you're stiff. It was a very sensible shoe print, and they said that they were looking for somebody who, you know, was a bit older perhaps,
Yes.
had a job, maybe had been in the way because of everything was arranged, maybe been in the military. So
Yeah.
they were getting a few clues coming through.
Yeah.
Now, also, I think it was this murder that she had grabbed his hair and there was a few strands of grey hair in her hands as well.
Yeah, so this is where they were like, it's probably not a fucking 16-year-old skateboarder who's wearing a Clark shoe and has white hair.
Oh, maybe it could have been a hipster. Now, the reward for information about the murders after this murder was increased to $250,000 by Christmas.
Yeah, I should fucking think so. So Christmas comes and goes and is fairly uneventful. And then on the New Year, January 11th, that shit bit, where everyone's still going, I hope you had a nice Happy New Year. We're right on the cusp of it being used in emails there.
This is genuinely true. When I worked at the library, it was like early March. A woman walked in to meet her friend, hugged her and said, Happy New Year. I was like, come off it. Unless that was an in-joke they had, but it didn't seem like it.
Yeah, Catherine Mather, brilliant Catherine Mather, fantastic.
Oh, yeah, she's great. My graveyard companion.
Your graveyard companion, yeah. And she's been doing some tour support for me. She's got a bit, which just sort of halfway through the set, I'll go, oh, shit, sorry, Happy New Year. So, January the 11th, 1990, is where he's basically at Greenwich Hospital. And he's on his pie sales round, yeah. And he's there with his little clipboard and he goes into the palliative care ward.
Oh, fucking hell. Does he just gets worse.
Yeah, he does, yeah. So there's 4 older ladies in there who are very unwell. It's end-of-life care. And they've all got advanced cancer. And he goes up to one in particular, Daisy Roberts, who... Oh, God, this is just fucking awful. She's 82 years old. And she's very, very, very unwell with advanced cancer. And he pretends to be a doctor. And he's there with his clipboard and he says, are you losing any body heat? And then he lifts up her nightie and sexually assaults her.
Ugh.
It's fucking horrible. So she freaks out and calls for help. And then the sister from the ward finds him there and is like, what are you doing here? And he just runs off. And... thank fuck, the sister is quick enough to write down his car registration number and tells the police, who don't really do anything. Well, they question him, and, you know, he's identified, and they give a description, and they know it's the guy doing the pie rounds, but they don't pass this on, that someone is assaulting and violating elderly women repeatedly. They don't pass this on to the task force for another 2 weeks.
Fucking hell.
Yep. They don't really make the link, even though they go back to the other hospitals and show the photo and they're like, yeah, that's the guy.
Well, by this point, the first woman who was attacked by him that we know of, who was visiting the area from Queensland, she hears about these crimes and she actually contacts the police and says, I think this guy might have been the person that attacked me, and she gave a really good photo fit of him.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that was out there as well at the time, and apparently it really did look like him. But again, the police were just like, it's old people.
Yeah, and I mean, they did get him in for questioning. So a different police branch, so Chatswood Police Station, said, can he come in? And they basically found out from the 4 and 20 pies who he was. And they said, can you come in for an interview the next day? But he didn't turn up. So they rang his house, and his wife said, he tried to kill himself by taking an overdose.
Oh, way to look innocent, mate.
I know. So they go to where he is in hospital and basically go to question him, and he says, I don't want to be questioned, I'm too unwell. And they were like, can we take a photo of you then? And he's like, okay. Isn't that fucking mad?
Well, do you know what? I know how he feels, because what fucks me off now is when you get a parcel delivered by whichever company it is. They just
You hate
fucking
this.
take a picture. Do you know what? Fuck it. I think it's so fucking intrusive. You fucking take a picture of me, you piece of shit. Like, take a picture of the parcel at the front door. I don't have to be in it.
Yeah.
I'm not essential to this. Also, and this really fucking gets my goat, right? You've heard this happen. Someone knocks at my door with a parcel. I don't know how fast these people think I am, but there'll be a 4-second pause and then they'll bang on the door again like I'm fucking harbouring criminals in there. Fucking give it. What did I say to the guy the other day? All right, mate.
Yeah. Do you know what though? Is that not because they're knocking on the door and then they've got this self-doubt where you're like, shit, did I knock on the door hard enough? And then they follow up with a harder knock.
The delivery person's insecurities and doubts are not my issue. I couldn't give a fuck. It's like when people go, oh, but they're overworked and stuff. Fine, I understand that, but I don't employ them. What I want as a customer is to buy something and have it delivered and not be accosted with a fucking camera in my face to show that you've done your job. Fuck off. What if you're... Seriously, what if you're on witness protection? Or what if you're a woman who is trying to get away from somebody who's been abusive, right? I know I'm being very serious here, but what if you're in that position where that sort of, you find that quite, worrying?
I know lots of people who've lived in, like, poverty who get really anxious when someone's banging on the door because it's like, oh, someone's coming to take my shit.
Mate, never mind living in poverty. I've got relatives. I get nervous when my door goes any fucking time thinking which one of those cunts it is, right? I hate it. I hate people. But also, there's one particular delivery driver, you know what he does? He does the double knock. So he gets my door knocker and next door's and does them together. Who are you? Then, not only that, I've got to speak to the person next door because he's brought us both out.
No, I think that's really efficient.
No, cunt's trick. Don't like it. It's all right for you with your post box at the end of the thing. You don't understand.
I can't
remember where we're up to. So. Where were we up to?
At this point, he's tried to take his own life and is in a hospital, and he's allowed the police to take a picture but not to talk to him. So
solidarity, brother.
The people in the hospital caring for him say to the police, listen, he has written a note, and it was written on 4 and 20p's business paper.
Oh my God, this guy.
Now, for a start, he
so can I just say as well, this is your last words, right? Pick some, what's that paper called? Is it Concord or Conquistador or something? Posh paper, I can't remember what it's called. Pick some of that, like your fucking note paper. I'll just write this on a frog and bucket coaster, shall I?
I actually would quite like that, my eulogy on a frog and bucket coaster. So he writes it on his work paper, which, shows to me that it's not terribly premeditated, and this is him sort of spiralling as the net tightens. So on it, he'd written, no more grannies, which is strange. And then he'd also written, Essie started it. So Essie, if you remember, is his Essie Roll, his mother-in-law, who, there was a very tense atmosphere at home. He absolutely hated her to the point that he'd built a separate house. And he'd made his mum, when she came over to live with him, he was so worried about them living under the same roof together, and basically his mum talking about him as a kid and then giving Essie, as he thought, ammunition to attack him, that he made his mum move 100 kilometres away. So the fact that he, in a suicide note, is trying to blame a woman for all his violent attacks on women is fucking irritating to me.
Yep, 100%. Now, the note wasn't handed to the task force, again, with the photo, until 2 weeks later.
Yeah. I mean, this is mad, because the task force at this point it's like 70 people strong.
Yeah.
And as soon as they get it, they were like, this is our guy. Even though they had no evidence, they were like, this is it. So the head of the task force said, if he'd have said to us, I don't want to talk, we wouldn't have proved a thing. But still, the photo matched the description of the grey-haired suspect, and his job as a pie salesman. Glover could have been at any of the murder scenes. But they were basically going off instinct at this point, and they were sure that as soon as they read that note, they got that guy. So yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks of it not being passed over.
Fucking hell. He was interviewed about the assaults and denied them, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. But they didn't ask him about the murders deliberately.
Yes. So they had very limited evidence, though. So what they decided to do was put him under surveillance, which I think he knew he was under.
Do you think?
Didn't he? Because he kept driving
was checking
around
to see if he was being followed an awful lot.
Yeah, he was like driving around sort of area the block 3-4 times just to check that it was being followed and stuff like that. He's paranoid anyway. He did know, and I don't think none of it was helpful. And there's a really awful incident that happens while he's under surveillance that I think the police really need to be fucking ashamed of, really. He goes to visit an old friend of his, it's that platonic friendship, a woman he used to play, was it cribbage?
Yeah.
He used to play crib with, called Joan Sinclair. Now, he arrives at her house one afternoon and she lets him in.
No, first thing in the morning. It's like 10 a.m.
Oh, is it 10 a.m? She's an older woman, but around the same age as him. So not an elderly lady. She lets him in. I think he's going over there on the pretense of like, oh, should we play crib and have a drink or whatever? Now, the police are outside for hours and hours and hours. And after a while, it's like, oh, maybe we should go and check. Well, they should have checked earlier because unfortunately by this point he's killed Joan, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Did he beat her to death? I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
He murders Joan and then he's found in the bath having taken an overdose. Awful.
They thought that basically because he was going over there so early, they were like, well, this person only murders in the afternoon, so if it is him, he's not going to be doing anything.
Yeah.
And then two boys, as they're sort of staking out the property, try to get in. I don't know what they're doing a delivery or something, but the gate was locked. So they went and got the neighbour to help them. They couldn't get in. And she had a dog, and the dog is going absolutely fucking spare inside. So this is when they sort of realise something's wrong. So the police are like, oh, shit. And so like, hey, what's going on here, guys? We're police officers. And they're like, oh, the dog's inside and it's really upset and we can't get in. So they use the dog. They go, oh, well, okay, well, we should...
Ah, that's it,
yeah. We should break in entry then. So they go, we need to speak to whoever's letting this dog bark so much. The door's locked, so they go to the back of the property and, oh, God, they look through a glass door and they could see a hammer and blood on the carpet of the front of the house.
Ugh.
So they break in, they force entry, I believe it's called when it's done legally. And this is where they found Joan. Now... there's a blood-stained claw hammer right next to her. Her head is wrapped in a towel. And basically, she's got no clothes from the waist down. And her tights are wrapped around her neck.
Ugh.
So then they were like, fuck, he might still be in here because we didn't actually see him leave. And then they search the house and they find him in the bathroom. So he's only semi-conscious. He's naked. He's vomiting and sliding in and out of consciousness, and he's sort of, his face is partially under the water as well.
What did the police say? Do you mind if we take a picture?
It was a Polaroid they took. Isn't that sort of like weirdly hipster as well? Do you know what, Polaroids as well, because they're like £18 every time you take a picture. It's like the most luxurious way to take a picture. You have to really make it count, don't you?
Yeah, it's got to be a good one.
So they call the paramedics who get to the scene and declare Joan dead at the scene. And then they go to John Wayne and they treat him because he's taken an overdose, basically, of alcohol and drugs. Ugh. So he's taken again to the Royal North Shore Hospital.
Not a very male way to...
No.
Usually it's a very feminine way to kill yourself, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
it is.
women that do that.
Yeah. Do you know what's really interesting? They take him to this hospital, which is the hospital he was admitted into for the other attempt at his own life. And... we've missed this bit out. Do you remember when, after he took his own, attempted to take his own life, the police go to question him about the assaults in the nursing homes, and they're chatting to a receptionist, and she was like, "Oh, I'm his wife."
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so they accidentally start chatting to her and asking questions, and she was like, "Oh no, I'm his wife. It's nothing like that," which is so mad. And she also then goes home and says, "Oh, just so you know, they're asking about you and these murders."
Oh, God.
So, obviously, everything starts escalating. So, he's in hospital. It's March 20th by this point. Happy New Year. And he's interviewed...
He's having a great one.
Yeah.
We've got photographic evidence.
The end of the tax year's looming. So, he's interviewed very briefly about the murders and the attempted murder of Doris as well. So... he actually just admits it. He says, right, yeah, I did it all and I attempted to kill Doris Cox. So he's formally charged while still in hospital. And they're basically like, as soon as you get out, you're going to go straight into interviews.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, straight into it. And that's obviously when he pretty much leaves hospital and goes straight to court.
So luckily we don't have a trial, which is a dream for me.
On the March 28th, 1990,
he says it's diminished responsibility, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. He goes to coroner's court. And so he gets formally charged with 14 offences. So that's first-degree murder, 6 of them, an attempted murder, a robbery and wounding, a robbery, and then 4 counts of indecent assault and 1 count of assaulting a female. There's a big old rap sheet against him because of all the accumulative crimes that they finally realised are something to do with him. So yes, he does sort of plead guilty, but says, it wasn't really my fault. And of course tries to blame his mother-in-law, for fuck's sake. He said that she was a trigger to him. And he also said that his mother passing away was the reason for him deciding to take his aggression out on someone else. Fucking hell.
Wow. He went to great pains, though, to try and make it clear to people that there was no sexual motive in the attacks, which is, I think, it's a lie, because he was going in molested. This is power, isn't it? This is all power. And it's not necessarily a sexual motive, it's a motive of, like, I'm going to humiliate you, isn't it?
Yeah, and the psychiatrist who sees him at the time is like, this is so unusual, because normally people who commit all these types of crimes are very, very unwell and or have some kind of damage to the brain or, some kind of disease. And they were like, no, this man is completely sane. And he's really aware of his actions. And he had planned what to do with his victim's money. And he would also take the time to, he'd take his hammer after every murder and he'd clean it down with acid. So he was very lucid when all this was happening. There was no, chaos to it. There was violence and, extreme... Well, there was, extreme violence, but there was no chaos to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
They also think that him taking the tights off and strangling the women and leaving them sort of half naked was him deliberately trying to make it look like there was a sexual motive to the crime.
Or it could be there was a sexual motive to the crime, but a humiliation motive.
Yeah.
I don't think he's that smart, I don't think he'd be able to plan something like that. I think he did that, and the fact that he's going into hospital and assaulting these women as well says to me that is part of the crime that he wants to commit. He can try and distance himself from it all he wants, but the fact is there is a sexual humiliation point of the crimes. I killed him, but I didn't want to fuck him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not a deviant, just a murderer.
Fucking idiot.
They said that they think it was all purely financially motivated because he was addicted to the poker machines, and they were like, this is the easiest way for him to get loads of money.
I don't think it's the easiest way. I don't think that is the easiest way. I mean...
No, sure, a payday loan.
Payday loan. Do a few more hours at work, Sell your car.
Or at least mug them, don't kill them. Yeah.
I mean, why are people looking for excuses for him?
Yeah.
It's not an excuse. But the judge stated, he was like, no, this guy is a dangerous person.
Well, the judge actually said, the prisoner has shown himself to be an exceedingly dangerous person, and that view was mirrored by the opinions of the psychiatrist who gave evidence at his trial. So basically they were like, it doesn't matter why he did it, it's just how dangerous he is for doing it. And so, he basically gave him the maximum
sentence.
Yeah.
Which meant that he would be in prison for the rest of his natural life. Mm-hmm. Which is a stupid thing to say, because you're not going to go, and when you're dead, you've got to come back as a ghost and come back in. Ooh. Stupid way of putting things, that, innit?
The judge also said it would be inappropriate to express any date as to release on parole.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like, and we're not even going to fucking listen if you try and get out as well.
So so Glover eventually takes his own life. Days before, he had an outside visitor. It doesn't say who that is, and he did a sketch of a park with some significant sort of things in it. There was a palm tree, and it said number 9, and the number 9 was said to represent the number of murders that he committed, or the number of unsolved murders. So it could just have been a shit drawing, but they do think there was something in it, and they think that there was 9 additional victims and unsolved cases, and they think that possibly these are the women that he could have killed. Elsie Boys, who was 63, that was in 1967. Emmy Mae Anderson, who was 78, that was in 1961. Irene Kiddle, who was 61, that was in 1963. Florence Broadhurst, that was in 1977. Christina Yankos, who was 63, in 1968. Josephine MacDonald, 72, in 1984. Wanda Amundsen, who was 83, that was 1986. And there was 2 other unknowns as well. So, who knows?
Also, there was a big controversy over it about it led to the government being criticised about the systems in place to prevent suicides in prisons, because there was so many, and his was very high profile because he was a high profile case, and he obviously had made attempts at his own life before, so should have been considered a suicide risk. They should have had him on watch and didn't. So yeah, it led to sort of like a government inquiry into it. I don't know if anything actually happened as a result of it, but that is him. So yeah, September the 9th, 2005, he took his own life and sort of ended it. It was all that thing in the press that was like, what a relief, basically, because even the fact that he was still alive, I think in particular older people have been very shocked and obviously felt incredibly unsafe all the time, that this sort of like dark reign of terror was happening and he just seemingly was getting away with it.
Horrible. Hate it.
Yeah.
Hated that one. Thanks for the suggestion. Much appreciated.
Yeah, and also the files are still open on him. They do think that he killed more.
Oh, okay. I mean, they're never going to solve that, are they? I mean, if they couldn't be asked then, they're not going to be asked now, are they?
But they might get a bit of evidence. Something might... A bit of DNA, a bit of this, bit of that, you know. So it does happen.
Possibly. So that's him. John Wayne Glover.
Awful, man. Fucking
hate
horrible.
him.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Just to say a couple of things. Both of our Edinburgh shows are on sale now.
Yes.
We'll be there for the entire month with our solo shows. So they're on sale. So please do come and see us if you are around. Also, here's a little save the date if you are at the Edinburgh Fringe. Is it the 16th of August?
It is, yes, mate.
Save the date for that. Perhaps there might be a show that you might be interested in. Perhaps.
Yes. And I would say that we put this out on the Facebook already, and loads of tickets for our solo shows have gone on those days. So if you wanted to come and see 3 shows, I won't say what the third one is, but if you wanted to come and see all 3 shows, then best to book soon.
Yes.
It'd be lovely to see you there. And thank you to everyone who's come on tour. Oh, last night my partner's dad was in the audience, and there's quite a lot in the show about... not a lot about my partner, but everything in it is quite rough. It's either a story about me banging him, or it's me making fun of him having a dead mum.
Oh God.
And I forgot to say this, I mentioned at the top of the show that my partner's dad was in, and then seconds later was making fun of the fact that my partner's mother has passed away. But I never really clarified, oh yeah, by the way, it's his ex-wife and it was an acrimonious divorce, so he'll be as thrilled about being reminded that she's
God.
dead. But
so they're sitting there going, this poor widower.
This poor widow, yeah, is being laid into, as opposed to the fact that like he sat there with his new wife and, you know, like...
Oh God.
Yeah.
I bet some people in the audience would go, well, I thought that was a bit much.
Yeah, but I mean, they still laughed, but there was definitely an extra frisson in the air. But it was really fun in Shrewsbury, so thank you very much for coming. I think this will come out start of next week probably. So there's still a few tickets left for Cardiff, but it's this massive venue is on the cusp of selling out, so it'd be great if you could come if you're in the diff. And then I've only got a few dates left. Birmingham, Leicester, York sold out, and then Bangor, hometown one, and then Machynlleth, and then Wells, and then I've got it off until the autumn. And if you want to come to Brighton, Bristol or London, they're all looking... Oh, and also Plymouth's where they nearly sold out. And Warwick, they're very busy for the autumn. So thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it.
I have some previews that I'll be doing of my new show in London, Leicester, Manchester. If you want to come to the Manchester one, that's selling very fast.
We should do Anne Friends, right? In Manchester soon.
Us, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's sort that.
Yeah, I'll do that now.
But yeah, come and they're all my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. They're all there. Have a look. I can't do everything for you.
Oh, also thank you to everyone who's bought a copy of Empathy Pains as well. It's on sale now. The show that was meant to tour that didn't. And so far, just this week, I think I'm gonna do. I need to work out the conversion rates. I know because it's split between 2 shows as well. But I think the men's mental health charity Purpas, I think I'm about to send today £1,000 over to them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, because people have been so generous when they've come to when they've been buying the show. So the more money I have, the more money I can be like, okay, I can afford to give a bit more. So yes, thank you so much. And that's there. My show, Victim Complex and Empathy Pains, are on Gumroad. So it would be lovely, and if you spend over 15 quid on it, today I'm sitting down and I'm sending out all badges and cards saying thank you very much. So yeah,
lovely.
That's that.
Thanks
for listening,
much,
guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.